Welcome to the 2011 New England Patriot Redraftables. Before we get to the 2011 draft, let's take a look at how the Patriots got there. It was their last year of not reaching the AFC Championship game before they did that between 2011 and 2018 every single year. This was the year they lost 28-21 at home against the Jets in the divisional round. Tom Brady was the NFL MVP, coming back his second year after ACL surgery. He had a 36-4 touchdown interception ratio, pretty low yards, and the completion percentage was average at the time, but the touchdown interceptions at that point was the most important. No real studs at the receiver position. Welker was starting to move on a little bit, and Gronk, Aaron Hernandez, and a couple others were still working their way up. So they had four players over 500 yards but under 1,000 yards. Gronk had 10 touchdowns before his breakout year the following year with 17 touchdowns, and Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis led the way for the rushing attack. Gerard Mayo really came into his prime this year after a couple years working his way up. He had 174 total tackles and was named to a first-team All-Pro. Rookie Devin McCourty spent his one and only year at corner. After a couple of years where the Patriots were struggling at corner, McCourty stepped in, had 7 interceptions, and was named to the Pro Bowl before moving to safety next year. The offense was first in the league. Obviously, how Brady won the MVP. The defense was 8th. The red zone, they were a little iffy. And then that day against the Jets, they just couldn't really move the ball. Rex Ryan and company did a good job slowing them down. They were behind the whole game and just weren't able to catch up, which led to the 2011 draft. Before we get to the Patriots side of it, let's take a little look at what the draft looked at as a whole. It was filled with top-end talent. Von Miller, A.J. Green, Patrick Peterson, Julio Jones, J.J. Watt. I mean, just absolute studs, and really, with the exception of maybe Richard Sherman, it was a top-end draft, and the Patriots had picks 17 and 28 coming into the draft, which we'll get to in a second. They took, at 17, Nate Soldier. This draft was really about protecting Brady with a pair of tackles and then giving him some support with running backs, but you do see Ryan Mallett, and this is a theme in the 2010s with Brady and company. They do take a lot of receivers, and they do take some playmakers to try and support him, but Belichick was very conscious of trying to get a guy to either, at this point, it's not to replace Brady. Obviously, Jimmy and Jacoby later, possibly more like that, but he was getting backups, and he was getting guys to make sure to fill in case Brady did go down again. Matt Castle was gone by this point, so you're looking at backups at that point, so they go with Mallett, but this was all about really Nate Soldier, Marcus Camden, and then the pair of running backs, Shane Vereen and Stevan Ridley. Not a great draft. No Pro Bowls, no All-Pros from these guys compared to the year before with Robert Gronkowski, and the following year with Chandler Jones and Dont'a Hightower. But some good, solid players that contributed to the Patriots to be successful. Let's take a look at the top 2 guys, and really the top 3 guys, because, as I said, the Patriots had 2 first-round picks come into this year, 17 and 28. With 17, they stuck and they took Nate Soldier. Absolutely a solid receiver for them. Played 7 years for the Patriots before moving on to the Giants when he signed a 4-year, $62 million contract with the Giants in 2018. Started from his rookie year. Was a right tackle his rookie year as Matt Light started at left tackle, then moved over later on to left tackle. Absolute stud, great guy in the community. He's played 130 career games. Wonderful with the Patriots, was 2-2, part of that Seahawks and Falcons Super Bowl. And then it got interesting at 28. And Patriots fans probably, this is where Belichick gets his feeling of he just trades down or trades out of position. You thought at 28, hey, let's go get Mark Ingram, get a weapon for Brady. They certainly needed it at that time. Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis was good, but people knew he wasn't in the long run. Take a first-round pick. But they did trade out of that spot. They traded with the Saints, and he got Ingram. And eventually that pick, though, they were able to trade and get Shane Vereen. And then the following year they got Chandler Jones. So you end up going really 2 for 2 instead of going 1 for 1. Chandler Jones, obviously, fantastic player that they eventually got rid of. But so that's why, to me, it's probably the right move. It's obviously the right move, excuse me. Muhammad Wilkerson, Cameron Heyward, obviously good guys they could have taken at that point. Chandler Jones probably, much more top-end talent. I believe he made the All-Decade team. the trade, we can get into that later, but it was the right move to get out of it. The bigger move is that they missed again in the second round. The first pick in the second round, Razai Dowling, 2 years in New England, 9 games played, and an absolute bust. I mean, it's a long line of busts. Him, Duke Dawson, Cyrus Jones, just second round DBs. Bill just can't draft him, unfortunately. I think it's just bad luck at this point, but Razai was another one of those whiffs in the second round. Sticking in the second round with the 56th pick, the Patriots took Shane Vereen, running back out of California, more of a receiving back. Kevin Falk was gone at this point. They were still looking to kind of fill in that receiving role. Shane Vereen, he stepped in, played from his rookie year, had just under 2,000 total yards from scrimmage in his Patriots career. Most notably to me is the 11 catches in the Seattle Super Bowl for 64 yards. Really set the precedent for what they did a couple years later with James White in the Falcons game of just, how you can feed a running back. And Vereen was very good. Worked well in tandem with Stevan Ridley, had a good couple of years. But he was out of the league by 2017. His best year was 2014 when he had 391 rushing yards, 52 catches, and 447 receiving yards. For comparison, and we'll get to this in a second, James White had 410 in 2015 to replace him. So Vereen was good, kind of along the lines of Stevan Ridley. Again, 4 years in New England, just under 3,000 rushing yards, 4.3 yards per carry. His best year was 2012, where he had just over 1,263 yards. But then steadily regressed from there, 340 yards his final year in New England. Both good players, and then this to me is kind of where, and I'll show in a second, where Sony Michel kind of has to be a little worried because these guys were 4 years in New England and then gone. Bill was able to move on, didn't want to pay him. They both went on to have a little bigger paydays, but both were out of the league by 2017, 2018. And then Ryan Mallett, he's obviously not Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously not Jacoby Brissett. This was a swing and a miss. He had 4 pass attempts in New England before moving on. And kind of looking the bottom on the left of the screen, the redraftable aspect of it. To me, Torrey Smith or Randall Cobb would have been nice picks over Shane Vereen. Patriots were going with Welker was getting up there in age. Edelman still hadn't hit his stride yet. And, Gronk and Hernandez ended up being the top receivers, I believe, in 2012, the following year. But it would have been nice to get Torrey Smith or Randall Cobb, 2 good weapons that the Patriots could have used. But with their luck at drafting receivers, they were not going to be selecting them, that's for sure. On the right side, just showing the running backs. Vereen and Ridley, 2 of the top backs from that time. Deion Lewis, Patriots obviously got to actually replace Shane Vereen in 2015. And that's where why he's so highly regarded. So probably the right pick, taking Vereen and Ridley for the Patriots at that time. With that being said, we're going to look a little bit more at the running backs. As I said, Stevan Ridley's career reminds me a lot of Sony Michel's. Michel's numbers are a tad better. These are comparing, the top 2 are comparing their first 2 years in the league. Michel more yards, same amount of touchdowns, a slightly less yards per attempt, and slightly less games played, and then 10 more receptions, which was really negligible. To me, the big difference is the playoffs. Sony Michel obviously had a fantastic playoffs in 2018 going into 2019. Compared to Ridley, that just didn't have that. The 6 touchdowns in his career is what stands out. So that's, to me, why Sony Michel, you've had a good first 2 years, but I think the writing's on the wall. This is probably it for his Patriots career. He'll probably be similar to Ridley of a 4 years and done type of guy. And then you see Ridley and Vereen's numbers, 2011 through 2014, their time with the Patriots. They were good. Good numbers, but you see in the bottom column why they were so replaceable. In 2015, they would have went a little bit more running back by committee with LeGarrette Blount, Deion Lewis, Brandon Bolden, James White. No 1,000-yard back maybe like Ridley was in 2012, and no 750-yard receiver out of them. But between Deion Lewis and James White, they could catch the ball. LeGarrette Blount could run the ball enough, and enough of a difference with Deion Lewis and Brandon Bolden to support Blount in that rushing game, which is how they were able to move on instead of paying them big in 2015. We'll move on to the final 4 Patriot picks in that draft. In the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, you're obviously not looking for much. You're just hoping to get one, and they got one out of it. Marcus Cannon, has been with the Patriots for the last 9 years. Kind of an interesting career. They were able to kind of hide him a little bit, play him sparingly the first couple of years. He played behind Sebastian Vollmer, and then has stepped in nicely since then, starting at right tackle. He started in the Falcon and Rams Super Bowl, and valuable asset for the Patriots. Soldier got good and was able to make a payday and move on. Ken has been paid. He's one of the top paid players on this team this season, but they were able to keep him under team control for these 9 years, which is important. He's the only guy that's been around for the entire time. Soldier was obviously the second longest tenured from this draft, which is why it's kind of a weaker draft for the Patriots. In terms of other plays you're looking at, I highlighted 153 through 155. Jeremy Curley and Niles Paul could have been good receivers for the Patriots. Maybe instead of a Lee Smith type of guy. And Richard Sherman, obviously one of the top players from the draft. The Seattle Seahawks, who I'll highlight in a second, did a great job drafting this year. Lee Smith struggled to make the team and did not make the team in 2011. Hernandez and Gronk both made it over him. I don't know if there was a third tight end. He's gone on to have a nice career. Still playing in 2019. So a good pick, just didn't make the team. And the 6th and 7th round guys didn't do much. Taking a look now, the bottom left, the receivers the Patriots could have taken. It'd be a theme in these redraftables, they just struggled to select guys at receiver. And then, they didn't find the Jeremy Curley, Cecil Shorts, Denarius Moores. Not a lot of talent there, obviously, but Patriots didn't get any of them. That's a trend. And then the right side just showing the top players in the draft by the approximate value added per Pro Football Reference, the teams that drafted them. Soldiers in that top 20 to 25. Anthony Costanzo slightly higher. I don't know how grades work for them. Most of this was first-end talent, guys that were out of reach for the Patriots, or quarterbacks like Andy Dalton that they obviously were not going to be selecting. With Richard Sherman in mind, this is to me how the Seahawks went on to have such success pretty soon here after this, including playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I mean, they hit with just some late-round studs. KJ Wright in the 4th round, Richard Sherman in the 5th round, Malcolm Smith in the 7th round. Just, you don't usually hit on these guys, and they hit 3 times. Not as well in their 1st and 3rd round picks, but when you get top-end talent later on in the drafts, like the Patriots have been able to do sometimes with guys like Julian Edelman, you can have success, and when you do it 3 times in the same draft, you're going to have a lot of success with cheaper guys that can absolutely play in this league. So looking back, not a great draft for the Patriots. They get 4 guys out of this that are playable. One guy's been with them since he was drafted, which is fantastic. 2 guys, though, that moved on right after their Patriots rookie deals ended. And Nate Soldier, awesome left tackle. And the theme to me, though, they knew they needed to protect Brady as he was into his 30s, and they did that here. A good draft in that regard, but we'll get to 2012 where they were able to select much higher end talent and really hit some guys that would lead the way for the Super Bowls this decade. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you're not already. Thank you.